Welcome everyone to our first Sappy Hour for 2023. Hooray, we're back. I would like to start the evening off with a land acknowledgement. We are on the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, composed of the Ojibwa, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi. Specifically, I am in the home of Caldwell First Nation and part of the House of Walpole Island First Nation. We acknowledge the caregivers of this land and all the moccasins that have traveled it over time. My name is Sarah Rupert. Some of you may know me from Point Pelee, and I'm coming to you from Leamington tonight, and I'm happy to be hosting Sappy Hour this evening. We're going to get some great updates on what's going on with the Atlas and what happened in year 2 tonight. And I am happy to introduce our two panelists for the evening. First off, Mike Burrell. I'm sure everybody here recognizes Mike from lots of our previous Sappy Hours, and Mike is here in a new role tonight. Your hat doesn't look any different, Mike, but you have taken over as the coordinator for the Atlas project, as Mike Cadman has retired. And in our upcoming newsletter, there will be a letter from Mike talking about this transition. So we will welcome Mike Burrell tonight, and he always, as always, will have lots of great insights for us. And of course, Kaylin's here too. And I know everyone knows Kaylin. She has been working on the Atlas since day one, and she's going to share lots of great information with us tonight as well. So I'm going to pass it over to you two, and let's get going with our Atlas talk for the evening.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Sarah. It's great, first of all, to be back doing our Sappy Hours. I know that we haven't been doing our Sappy Hours since probably, when is the last Sappy Hour? I guess back in the fall. So here we are. Thanks, Mike. Mike's got the presentation going for me. And so we're going to be talking about year 2 of the Atlas and also about our progress up until now. So for those of us who may be new to the Atlas is a 5-year project. So we started in 2021 and we have 2 years under our belt now. We're going into the 3rd year. And so we're going to be doing one of these every year up until the very end. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so we thought we would start off by comparing Atlas-2, so 2001 to 2005, but just the first couple of years, to these couple of years of the Atlas, 2021 and 2022. So comparing the Atlaser species, squares, records, point counts, and hours. So I think it's pretty comparable between Atlas 2 and Atlas 3 in terms of Atlasers, in terms of most of these things, except for squares. I'd say that we're a little bit behind. That's not entirely surprising to me, given that our first year, 2021, was kind of a COVID year where we weren't able to get to a lot of the northern squares, weren't able to do a lot of the traveling. And I think also 2022, a lot of people were catching up on things that they weren't able to do during the pandemic. And so maybe weren't able to get to some of the squares that they had hoped to get to, but that's all right. It's a 5-year project and it's a marathon rather than a sprint. So we're looking forward to getting to those squares in the upcoming years, 2023 and beyond. You can see, oh, sorry, I was just going to say, you can see that we've got a lot more records during this Atlas than the previous Atlas, and that's because of our checklist-based approach during this Atlas. And we've got lots of hours under our belts, 64,000 hours, and then in the brackets, those are hours during the peak period. So that's May 24th to July 10th in the south and June 1st to July 10th in the north. So yeah, next slide. So this just shows the different ways that our Atlasers are submitting data to us. So that we have the Nature Counts app, the Nature Counts website or web portal, and then we have eBird import, so importing your eBird checklist to the Nature Counts web portal. So in our first year, they were all pretty comparable in terms of like where people were submitting their data. But this year, the Nature Counts app has pulled ahead just slightly from the other 2 methods of data entry. And I think that's because the app has really just continually improved since our first year of using it, which is 2021. And I think more and more people are coming to know and love the Nature Counts app and how easy it is to submit data through that method. Next slide. So special surveys, another thing that people are picking up on a lot more in the second year of the Atlas. So you can see 2021 and 2022 for these special surveys. These are stations, so not squares, but each individual station is counted. And you can see lots of folks are getting their Eastern Screech Owl surveys done, which is not surprising because that's in Southern Ontario where we have the most folks. But a lot of more people are also taking on those marsh bird surveys. You can see in the first year, we only had 29 stations done for the marsh bird surveys, whereas this year in 2022, we actually had 370 stations as compared to the 29, which is pretty exciting. So overall, we've had a lot more of these special surveys done, and we're hoping that this will continue on in 2023 and beyond. All right, here we're getting into the meat of it, I guess, the peak hours and the point counts. So here you can see the number of peak hours per square for Southern Ontario. So up until that red line, we want to have 100% of those squares with 20 hours or more of atlasing data in the peak period. So if we go to the next slide, we can kind of see how that gets rounded out to the region, because I know looking at the square level can be kind of daunting sometimes. But this is the percentage of squares that have 8 or more peak hours. And we chose 8 because, you know, if you do 4 hours each year, after the second year, you should have 8. And by the 5th year, you'll have your 20 hours. So you can see that kind of in that golden horseshoe area, most of the regions have their squares pretty well done. And as you get further north, as there's fewer folks to do those the atlasing, it gets a little bit more sparse. So yeah, and now we're looking at the block level for the north, because in the north, from Sault Ste. Marie up until where the roads pretty well end, we want 5% of squares with the 20 hours. So that's 5 squares of every 100, so of every block. And so you can see we're getting some of the blocks filled in terms of atlasing effort. And if we go to the next slide, we can see it by region. So this is showing it by region now. As you can see, regions 43 and 44, that's kind of where there's no more roads essentially, or fewer roads. And we kind of need to do those northern trips to get to those ones. We're a little bit lacking in those areas just because in 2021 we weren't able to do any northern trips, but in 2022 we were able to get a few done, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So now we're moving on to point counts. It's the same sort of thing. Up until that red line, we want 100% of the squares to have 25 point counts. So I know that can be pretty daunting. And if we look at it on the region level, you can see there are a few of the regions that are pulling ahead in terms of getting their point counts done. Region 7, which is the Kitchener-Waterloo region, Region 46, which is Durham, and then Region 16, which is Peterborough, which is Mike Burrell's home region, and I'm sure we have him and others to thank for that. But other regions are catching up. You can see even some of those northern regions, like the Sudbury regions 31 and 32, are still getting some of their point counts done. And I think that's really to do with our Zoom point counts. A lot of folks up there are taking on the Zoom point counts, and we had some staff doing Zoom point counts up there as well. So if we look at the block level, that's the same sort of thing, the number of point counts. So up until where the roads end, so not including 43 and 44, we want 25 or more point counts in 5 squares per block. So if we look at that on the region level, you can see that we're getting some work done in those regions up until where the roads end, and then 43 and 44 again are really going to be dependent on those northern trips. Speaking of Zoom point counts, we've had quite a few Zoom point counts submitted. You can see right in that Sudbury area that 621 point counts. Those are Zoom point counts, mostly done by our summer staff in 2021, but a lot have been submitted by volunteers in that area as well. We did just get the 2022 digital point counts interpreted, and so we'll have our list of top performers to you very soon for who did the most digital point counts in 2022.
All right, I'm going to give Kaylin a break here. Thanks, Kaylin. So we're still talking about how we're doing for coverage, and Kaylin showed you a bunch of those maps showing how hard it is to get coverage in the really far northern part of the province, Region 43, Region 44. So we have a really great amount of work that's being done by some of the folks at the Canadian Wildlife Service, and they've put up in partnership with Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry a whole hundreds and hundreds of ARUs, or automated recording units. The ones that are white there, those are ones that were placed out in 2021, and the ones in black are from 2022. So these have also been these recordings that were made by these ARUs have been interpreted over the past winter, and we are really excited to get those data incorporated into the Atlas. That hasn't happened yet, so some of those coverage maps don't quite reflect all the data that is out there yet. These are really amazing additions to the Atlas and the coverage of the Atlas, because they're in places that are pretty well impossible for us to normally get to. These are being put out by either snowmobiles in the winter, late winter, or else by helicopter. So there are places that you can't get to on foot really at all. So they're going to add a huge amount of information. There's some really cool stuff coming out of this already. Hundreds and hundreds of great gray owls and boreal owls being recorded on these, and sharp-tailed grouse and common nighthawks, all these birds, Connecticut warblers, all sorts of birds that we just rule over here in southern Ontario are showing up in big numbers on these ARUs. So it's really going to change what we know about birds in the north, especially. There's lots of amazing observations that have come into the Atlas in year 2. We talk about significant species. Those are those birds that have the special tick beside their names. If we're talking just about the provincially rare and the species of interest, that's these things at the provincial level, we had over 61,000 breeding evidence records come in of significant species in year 2. And that includes almost 10,000 pinned locations, those precise locations that you can pin with the app or the website. So that's an amazing amount of really high quality data that will be used for conservation of those significant species. And this also includes our species at risk. And so last year in year 2, we had 41 species at risk that were recorded, and almost 30,000 breeding evidence records of those species at risk. And that includes things like the Kirtland's warbler there on the left, that were recorded in Simcoe region, and as well, we had a really cool record. Our first successful nesting of blackneck stilts happened last year in the Elgin Middlesex region. So pretty cool finds in year 2 of Atlas-3. In terms of all the species reported, I think most of you will be pretty familiar with the list of species up at the top of our reports. So our top reported species in terms of number of squares goes to red-eyed vireo, with over 2,000 squares. The only other species at top 2,000 squares with breeding evidence was American robin, but some other pretty impressive numbers there coming in last year. And we've got lots of amazing contributors that are submitting an amazing amount of effort into the Atlas. Top contributor in terms of both checklists and records last year was Don Sutherland, but lots of other amazing contributions. So thank you to everybody who submitted, and special shout out to these rock stars. Kaylin showed you that map of point counts, and it is an amazing achievement that we've had as many point counts submitted as we have already. And some of that again is thanks to some of our rock stars. Bob Saunders, I think he was tops last year too, right? Yeah, Bob is amazing. He submitted 315 point counts last year, so pretty amazing stuff, and lots of other amazing contributions. So if you want to get on the highlights screen next year, it looks like you're going to need to submit about 150 point counts if the trend holds true next year.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Okay, it's me again, and I want to talk a little bit about the highlights. I know I spoke earlier just about, how it's been a bit of a tough start to the Atlas, just given obviously the COVID situation that we were in 2021. But 2022, I feel like we bounced back from that. And one of the best things in my mind was for us to finally be able to get together again and go birding and learn some of the new technology together or ask questions in person, and really have some of those gatherings. Zoom has obviously been really great because we can do things like this and we can all meet virtually, but there's something about meeting in person and, going birding or going atlasing together. So some of the highlights that are pictured here are the northern trips, which we finally got to do in 2022, square bashes, which we did for the first time in 2022, in which I got to do my first square bashes ever. The kickoff, the 2022 kickoff, where we actually had some regional in-person meetings. There's a few there. I can see Region 13 and Region 4 and 41 pictures there. And then square bashes. Oh, wait, I said square bashes. And then, yeah, just the Big Atlas weekend, which we also got to do in 2022, which we didn't participate in 2021 as well. So yeah, those are kind of the biggest highlights, but I'll expand on more a little bit here. So the northern trips, we got to do 5 northern trips in 2022, which I mentioned earlier. You can see them here in the pastel colors. So we got to do the Muckatai, the Mississa, Ogoki, Barrens, and Woodland Caribou. So there's one photo from each of those here. And this upcoming year, we're planning on doing 10 more trips. So kind of scaling up a little bit now that we know, that things are going to be a little bit more open than we were kind of uncertain last year. So kind of going in full force this year. So the next slide. And the square bashes, which I mentioned, we had the Halfway Lake Square Bash, which was led by Mark Beck and Emily Rondell, the Grundy Square Bash, which was led by Mike Cadman, and Daryl was there as well. And then Alex Mills helped me with the Mikisew Square Bash, and that's where I met some of our Atlasers for the first time. So getting some coverage in some of those northern places that it might be a little bit more sparse and difficult to get to our 100% coverage goals. Yeah. Okay, back to Mike.
Okay, these are some of my favorite parts of getting to talk about the results so far of the Atlas, and that's looking at some of the bird data. So we were able to make up a few maps, these rotating maps that show you Atlas 1, Atlas 2, Atlas 3, to show you a few species that we're seeing really big, obvious changes between the 3 atlases. So the first one I wanted to show was the blue-winged teal. So in this one, you can see in Atlas 1, which for those of you who weren't participants or don't remember, that was in the early 80s. And then Atlas 2 was in the early 2000s. And then we've got Atlas 3 happening right now. So this is a species where we're seeing really big change, negative change, where it was much more widespread in Atlas 1. Atlas 2, it was still pretty widespread, especially in Southern Ontario. But now in Atlas 3 so far, we're not seeing very many breeding evidence records at all in Southern Ontario. So this is one that's really gone, unfortunately, negatively. Another one that seems to be declining or being reported less is ruffed grouse. This one, obviously, we're not fully complete with our coverage in parts of sort of central and northern Ontario. So it looks like there's a bit of a drop in some of those places, and that might just be lack of effort so far. But where we are seeing what looks like a real trend is there in southwestern Ontario, where we've lost ruffed grouse from a lot of places, which is too bad. It's a pretty cool species. But it's not all negative. This one is common raven, and the spread south of this one is absolutely incredible. It was just starting to show up south of the Canadian Shield in Atlas 2, and then this year it's like almost down to Essex County breeding, which is pretty incredible. So this is a species that's just absolutely amazingly increasing in Southern Ontario. And similarly, we've got red-bellied woodpecker. This guy is doing really well spreading north. So in Atlas 1, it was really a Carolinian species restricted mostly to southwestern Ontario. And in this Atlas, it's spreading well south or well north onto the Canadian Shield. So lots of neat things we're learning like these. You're going to see a few more of these later on in our quiz section of the presentation. So for 2023, some of the things we want to focus on are starting to focus in really a lot onto these gaps. So these are all either gaps that Kaylin was kind of showing, where we're seeing some holes in squares not being covered, holes in habitats that haven't been well surveyed, or places where point counts aren't done. We want to stress again, we're really looking for as many precise locations on those significant species as possible. If you can get out and do special surveys, the more we can get done, the better we'll be able to know what's going on with different species. And we really want you to give the app another shot if you haven't tried it recently. There's been lots of new upgrades, lots of new features, and there's more coming before Atlas-3 season really gets underway this year. And we're planning another Sappy Hour just to talk about the app and how to use it and some of the new features. So those are some of the things we're looking forward to in 2023. We wanted to show you a few maps. I know you're kind of map overloaded already, but this map shows where some of our gaps are. So in this map, areas that are orange or yellow are in the most need of coverage. The areas that are green are needing some coverage as well. And then the areas that are sort of plain, no fill, those areas have pretty much got their coverage. So they've got their point counts, they got their hours done. So as you can see, no matter where you live, if you live in Southern Ontario, there are gaps near you. So make a mental note of that. You can talk to your regional coordinator if you want to be pointed in the direction of the biggest gaps. Or you can come join us on one of our planned square bashes that are happening this year. You'll be able to find out more about these square bashes in some of the newsletters coming out, but we've got 3 planned. We're very excited. As Kaylin said, it's much more fun when we get to do these things with people and in person rather than just in front of a computer screen. So we've got one that's going to happen kind of concurrently with the Huron Fringe Birding Festival at McGregor Point Provincial Park in southern Bruce County. That one's going to be May 29th to June 2nd. We've got another one happening at Charbot Lake the first week of June 2 to June 7th. And then there's another one that's going to happen on the French River from June 9th to 16th. So if you're really ambitious, you could make it to all 3. But we will be happy if you come to just one of them to help us get coverage in some of those areas in most need in Southern Ontario. If you're in the north, there are plenty of gaps for you to fill as well. This map is just showing you kind of the reverse of that last one. So the ones that are red, the deeper red in this one are areas that are better covered than the rest. So some of those squares, even near Thunder Bay and up near Timmins and Kapuskasing and places like that, they need coverage. So anywhere you can cover in the north is like amazing to help us reach our coverage goals for the Atlas. Okay, so that's our overview of how things are going so far, where we're heading, where we've come from. And we wanted to keep things nice and light. So we've got a short trivia here. And if you're on the Zoom, webinar, you'll be able to do the answers right in Zoom. If you're on Facebook, then just type your answers in. And we're going to have, I think we've got a couple copies of the Peterson Guide to Bird Nests that we'll give out to 2 people who participate in the trivia. So I hope this is fun. That's the main thing. So Sarah, are you able to bring those up as I get through?
I'll run them. I got it.
Kaylin's got it. All right, perfect. Okay, so question 1 is one of these maps, and this is not one that I showed you earlier. So which species do these maps belong to? So is it, oh, and it's not rotating, is it? Huh, I don't know why it's not rotating. Is it rotating for you, Kaylin? No. All right. Strange, but we will work with this one. So this is a species that, as you can see on the map, is found sort of south edge of the Shield, Manitoulin Island, Rainy River. All right. Is the quiz up?
Yep.
Okay.
We've got 28, 30 now, 35. We still got folks submitting, so I'll wait another couple seconds.
Okay. A few more seconds.
Emily Rondell is carrying the Facebook team.
Oh, thanks, Emily.
Oh, someone else has answered. Okay, I'm gonna close it now and I'll show the results.
All right. So half of you got it right. Oh, there. Now it's moving. Okay.
Maybe you have to click it for it to go.
I guess that time I gotta click it. Okay. So that's what it looks like on the loop. I was afraid to click it because I didn't want to reveal the answer.
No, for next time.
So this one has really declined in especially now in Atlas-3, and it is upland sandpiper. All right. We know the trick now. So let's go to question 2. We've got one more map. Okay, and there's rotating. Which species do these maps belong to? How we doing?
Facebook is looking pretty quiet.
Oh.
We still got some folks. Oh, someone answered on Facebook. All right. Got about 50 folks have replied on our poll here.
Okay.
I'll give
All right.
another 1 second. All right.
All right. So we tricked a lot of you on this one. The most popular guess was common raven, which this map looks a lot like common raven. But it is Merlin, which shows a very similar sort of gradual southward trend as common raven does. So you cannot be blamed for guessing raven, but this one is in fact Merlin.
A couple of Facebook folks got that one.
All right. Okay, we are done with the maps. So this one, which species had the most pinned locations in 2022? So remember, pinned locations are when you're in the app and you drop a pin for the exact location of the bird or pair or whatever. And those pin locations are super, super helpful for us down the road when we start doing mapping for the species, but also for conservation planning for those species. So you got lots of options to choose from. You'll notice a trend. Those are all species that are flagged as significant species for one reason or another. So those are the most commonly, those are all fairly commonly pinned species, which is awesome because those are the species we most want those pins for. How are we doing?
My mouse was on my other screen, but it looks like we're slowing down. We got a couple barn swallows and a killdeer on Facebook, and I'm just gonna end our poll here and share our results so you can see what we've got here.
All right, yeah, that was a tough one. You hadn't got it. Nobody had a hint before this one came up. The answer is Eastern wood pewee with 664 pins, and Eastern meadowlark was number 2. Barn swallow was 3. So pretty amazing that we got 600 plus pins of Eastern wood pewee, exact locations of where Eastern wood pewees are in the breeding season. So that's awesome. Okay, question number 4, and there's one more after this one. After year 2, which species is not in the top 10 for number of squares with breeding evidence? So it's one of these negative ones. Which one is not in the top 10? Another hard one.
Yeah, I was going to say, folks aren't as sure about this one. The answers are coming in a little bit slower. Facebook is oddly silent again.
Yeah, I don't think I would get this one. So nobody can be blamed for not getting these right. This is just for fun and just to illustrate, you know, some of the neat things we're finding out about birds in Ontario after year 2.
Emily says we're rushing her on Facebook.
Well, she better not be going and trying to find the answer on the website.
Yeah. Can't give them too much time, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna end it and we'll share the results here.
Okay. Interesting. So white-throated sparrow and northern flicker tied. American redstart was a close third. So last year, I did a reverse of this question, and the answer was American redstart. So I was seeing if anybody could remember back from last year. Probably nobody remembers that. Okay, so the answer is white-throated sparrow. So a lot of you got that one right. I'm impressed because I would not have guessed white-throated sparrow. You can see the table that's up there is number 12. And northern flicker, which a lot of you guessed also, is number 9. So it is in the top 10. All right, last question. Which species has confirmed breeding so far? So remember, we've got possible, probable, confirmed level of breeding evidence codes. Which one of these species has been confirmed after 2 years? So not just in year 2, but over the first 2 years, which one has been confirmed, if any? It's another tricky one. I also don't think I would have got this one right.
Some hesitancy to select something this time.
So, and while people are thinking about the answer, just a reminder that we will be drawing 2 names. We'll do that after the Sappy Hour is over. So we're not going to take up everybody's time, but we're going to draw 2 names to win a copy of the Peterson Guide to Bird Nests. But we'll need to be able to look up your contact information. So if you're not registered for the Atlas and you're thinking you might win, make sure you've registered if you're not already registered.
All right, I think we've got what we're gonna get. So I'll go ahead and end this here and share the results.
Okay, yeah, that one's totally split, eh? No obvious winners, no obvious ones coming out. But 6 of you did get the right answer. The right answer is whimbrel, as the only species in that list that has been confirmed so far. So the theme there is northern birds. There's lots more effort needed in the north to get a lot of these species confirmed. So that's your incentive to go and get some more northern birds. So did anybody get 5 out of 5? Just curious. I don't know if they can leave a note on Facebook or in Zoom. That was pretty hard, I have to say.
I think Emily might have. Some other folks might have on Zoom, but I can't see. At least Emily's on Facebook is attached to her name. Everyone else is.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's.
Yeah. Tyler says Tyler Hoare got 4 out of 5. So.
Okay. That's pretty good. 4 out of 5. There was a lot. There was probably, yeah. If you got 3, you were doing really well. So.
Never mind. Emily got 4.
Okay.
We have a tie.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, we will draw names maybe tomorrow. We'll try to do that tomorrow and get some prizes out. But thanks everybody for playing along, humoring us. So as you have heard tonight, we're doing really well after 2 years. We've still got 3 more seasons, and we do have a lot of ground to do, a lot of birds to find. But we're really now into this period where we need to start focusing on some of those gaps, finishing areas, especially in Southern Ontario. So if you're looking at ideas for the summer, where to go, you can talk to your RC. You can plan a trip into Central or Northern Ontario where we have a lot more gaps, or you can just Atlas in your backyard too. Every little bit helps, but we couldn't be where we are without the help of everybody. All the amazing volunteers and our regional coordinator team are getting a lot of stuff done, and it's pretty cool to see the results coming in. We do have a few reminders. I'm just going to end the slideshow. End slideshow so that I can see my notes. Okay, so a few quick reminders before we shift over to questions. We are into the start of the breeding season for lots of birds now, and it's only going to ramp up. You know, every week we go into the spring, we're going to have more birds back, more birds breeding. So there is early season atlasing you can go do. Some of the best things to do this time of year are some looking for things like screech owls and great horned owls if you're in Southern Ontario. Bald eagles are sitting on eggs in a lot of places in Southern Ontario already. I've heard of red-tailed hawks even starting to work on nests. It's a good time of year to go look for big stick nests. Even if they're not being used right now, you can go find those nests. They're a lot easier to find now than they are when the leaves are on, and you can go back and see what's living on them in a couple months from now. So lots of early season atlasing can be done. We've got the Eastern Screech Owl survey begins in just over a week, starts March 1st. So that's something that it'd be great to start doing in the next couple weeks. And our next Sappy Hour, which is going to be March 14th, I think, is going to be all about the owl surveys. So if you want to learn more about the Screech Owl surveys or the other owl survey protocols, please join us then. And as Sarah mentioned, we've got our newsletter coming out. Should be this week. We've got our February newsletter coming out, which has lots more news, and you're only going to hear more and more from us as the season rolls on. So lots going on, and thanks everybody for listening tonight. I think we've got some questions, so maybe I'll turn it back over to you, Sarah.
Sure. So we did have one question come in. When people do Zoom point counts, do they receive a report eventually regarding the birds they recorded after the analysis has been done?
We haven't done that yet. That's a cool idea. We haven't done that yet. We're still in the process of working out all the kinks of getting that data from the interpretation system into the Atlas. So once that happens, then we can start thinking about doing stuff like that. I don't know, Kaylin, do you have anything more to add to that one?
No, that's what I was going to say as well. Yeah, we're still trying to, once we have that pathway formed between wild tracks and nature counts, I think it'll be easy in future years to kind of push it. But for now, we're still trying to trailblaze that into existence.
All right. We had another question. Would you be willing to post 1 to 2 cool examples of the ARU recordings that you've got on social media? Might motivate some of us to get up into the north and get some of those of us who are already signed up really excited about it.
Yeah, another awesome suggestion. Yes, that's definitely something we've talked about. We just haven't got around to doing it either. But yeah, they are fantastic. And I mean, listening to great gray owls and sharp-tailed grouse and Connecticut warblers is pretty cool, especially this time of year. And the recordings are amazing. The quality is amazing. So yeah, that is definitely something we will try to do sooner rather than later.
All right. And Jeff Carpenter also wanted to share that there's a new book just published by Comstock Publishing on baby bird identification. It's a North American guide by Linda Tuttle Adams. So that might be a great resource out there for people I certainly would like to have it at work because I get pictures of baby birds shown to me all the time. So it'd be nice to have that resource. Okay, we have another question here. Is there any theories as to why ravens and merlins are moving south?
I've heard a few. Part of the, I mean, with merlins, part of it has got to be sort of to do with DDT. You know, it's mirroring the same recovery that a lot of other raptors have seen with the banning of DDT, and raven maybe is partly related to that too. With ravens, I had heard something along the lines of they disappeared from sort of southern Ontario when a lot of the big nest trees were removed with European colonization. I don't know if that's true or not. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much better than that. There's probably much better explanations out there. I don't know, Sarah or Kaylin, have you heard much better than that?
No. All right, we have another comment here. If we notice that data is missing from the square summary, example, I noticed some species missing that were detected during special surveys and point counts and submitted via Nature Counts app are not included in the square summary. What's the best way to remedy this?
Yeah, so I guess a quick follow-up, if you can type it in there, is that something you've noticed recently, or is that something from like last summer? Because I think we got that fixed, Kaylin. Yeah,
it should be fixed. There was a couple species that people mentioned on Discord recently that were not showing up in square summary sheets. Do you remember what those were, Mike?
Yeah, it was great horned owl and rock pigeon. Those two, it was related to a taxonomic update in the system. And yeah, that was something we needed to follow up on to see if Nature Counts has fixed that. But if it's the problem from last summer with special survey data not showing up, that should be fixed.
Yeah, they noticed it as of January 20th, 2023.
Okay. It might be worth sending me a quick email. I'll type my email in the chat. It's atlas@birdsontario.org. And just let me know which species are missing. There are some instances where either in point counts or in special surveys, folks don't put breeding evidence. And if you don't have the breeding evidence associated with the species, they won't show up on the square summary sheet. So that was an issue that a lot of folks had with the point counts, is that, you know, I saw it on the point count, but it's not on my square summary sheet. And the reason for that is because there's no breeding evidence associated with it. So just bear that in mind as well.
All right.
Yeah, the other possible explanation is if it's a flagged record, if it's something unusual and required details, then it won't show up on the square summary until it's been reviewed by the regional coordinator. That being said, I think we're caught up. The regional review has been caught up. So I don't think that'd be the issue, but it is a possible explanation too.
Someone else has said, I like to use Merlin to study bird songs, but the current version won't show birds that aren't supposed to be in your area at this time of year. Is there a way to override that?
I cannot help you with that one. I don't know Merlin very well. There probably is a way to override it, but yeah, I'm not familiar enough with the Merlin app.
I think you can, this is just off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure you can load other, like when you first start your Merlin app, you load a certain kind of like Eastern North America or those kinds of things. What I'd suggest doing is just maybe taking your location off while you're using it to study birds and have that whole Eastern North America library loaded in, and you'll probably find it will work a little bit better. Somebody said to uninstall and reinstall the app. I had the same problem earlier this year. So there's another thing you can try. There's another great program out there called Larkwire. I don't know how many people have used Larkwire before, but I think it's a great way to study birdsong as well. and you can load very much like Eastern North America, Western, the entire continent if you want to, for practicing and learning your bird songs. So. All right. Somebody said last time I checked, Blackbriar worked on the iPhone. You can do it on the web as well. So if you, as an app, it's only available in iOS, but you can do it web-based as well. So if you want to use it on an Android, you can access it through the web, or you can just do it on the web through your computer. All right. And Mark Peck has also suggested Dendroica website for listening to and learning song as well. So there's a lot of wonderful resources out there.
Yeah, if anyone's not sure how to use Dendroica, I actually made a tutorial video on how to use it and the best ways of learning songs and testing yourself. So you can find that on our YouTube channel. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions on our Facebook, and never mind, it looks like there's some in the Q&A, unless it's just.
Someone is asking, can we download pictures for our Atlas Square yet?
So I think they mean maybe uploading media to a checklist, and we don't have that capability just yet. Lynn, let me know if that's indeed what you meant. If not, I'll try to answer better. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so you can't upload media with your checklist just yet, unfortunately. But that is on the list of things that we're asking of the Nature Counts folks. So we're hopeful that it might come to fruition. In the meantime, if you do have the photos and your RC follows up with you, you can always put in your comments that you have the media or you have the picture or whatever else, and they can always follow up with you if necessary. If you're using eBird or importing from eBird, you can always, it has the eBird checklist, so you can always save the pictures on your eBird list too. So those are a few options that you have in terms of media.
Wonderful. And there's one more comment that there's an option to play Merlin to display all your, not just the birds that are there right now. We have a question from Peter, who is, hi, I'm new to the Atlas this year. If we are familiar enough with local bird songs called, do we need to submit any recordings associated with the point count?
Nope. No, the recordings with the Zoom units and ARUs, that's like optional stuff, especially if it's for people that are not comfortable with their bird identification. But the majority of point counts are just conducted in person, just making a list of all the birds you're hearing. So if you know your birds well enough to do that, then we absolutely are thrilled to have you. And if you want to do some point counts, please reach out to your regional coordinator and let them know that you're interested. But yeah, welcome aboard.
Someone is asking if the long-eared owl survey is still a special survey, saying that they picked up some on the ARUs at Chapleau this past summer.
It is. Yep. The long-eared owl survey is a special survey. So after the first year, we didn't get our data entry portal on Nature Counts up and running in 2021, but we do have the data entry portal on there now. And so, yeah, if you want to run your long-eared owl surveys, then you certainly can. Otherwise, if you do go and just do, nocturnal surveying or daytime surveying for owls or whatever else, you can just upload those as general atlasing. So if you're not following the standardized protocols, then you upload it as general atlasing. But if you are following the protocols, then you can submit it through the special surveys portal.
Okay. That answered that one. All right. I don't see any more questions on my end. Do you have any over there on Facebook, Kaylin?
No, no more on Facebook.
Well, then you guys have done your job tonight and answered all the questions.
Yeah. Again, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, and follow up, with the square summary, my email is in the chat. I can also post it on Facebook. It's atlas@birdsontario.org.
Wonderful. Well, I guess we're probably ready to wrap it up for the evening. I'd like to thank Mike and Kaylin for sharing all this great information about what we've learned so far. I think it's going to motivate us all to get out there and add to the information that's going to come in the next 3 years. So if you have questions, you know, Kaylin's happy to answer them, and we'll be back. Oh, there's one other one. We have one more question. Can you clarify whether how you can add birds you see to checklists you record with a Zoom recorder when doing point counts?
Yeah, I can take that one. So let me just reread that question quick. Oh, lost it. So yeah, if you're doing a Zoom recording, like a Zoom point count, you can do your own checklist of the birds you're able to see, or the birds you're able to identify in the field, and do it just as a regular Atlasing checklist. But it's important that the Zoom recording is kept separately, because we can use those checklists basically to correct on the data analysis side of things. But we need you to just do it as a regular checklist, the birds you're able to identify. And then the Zoom recording is something completely separate.
All right.
I'll add one more thing. Kaylin gave you her email address, but if you've got questions, you're also encouraged to join our discussion forum, which is hosted on Discord. Maybe Kaylin, you can quick pop that into the chats. But we're trying to get more and more people to join that, and that way our community can grow and you can connect with other Atlasers, and a lot of those questions other people might be able to answer even faster than Kaylin or I can.
Yeah. And if you follow along on social media, there's some great graphics up last week on how to get involved with Discord. So if you haven't seen them, just scroll back a little bit on Facebook and you'll be able to find them. So, all right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up for the evening. Are you feeling that too, folks?
Yep, sounds great.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. We always appreciate it. I'm just happy I was not in a pancake coma after since it's Pancake Tuesday for at work today. So I'm glad everyone was able to come out and join us. And we'll be back in what, 3 weeks?
Yep, 3 weeks.
To talk about owls. And everybody loves talking about owls. So I look forward to seeing everybody back in a couple weeks. Bye, everyone, and have a great night.
Thanks so much.
Everybody.
Bye, guys.